are looking into the second perek. We just had a look at the Mishnah last week. We were speaking, and the main emphasis we were talking about, this is accidental death. And we were speaking last week about the ways there is talking about that to show, if you remember, there are three categories. Of course, there's mazid, which is intentional, but ignoring the intentional, you've got in the middle, I suppose you'd say, is accidental shogeg. And if you remember, someone who kills accidentally goes off to Golus, one of the what's called the Ori Miklot, the cities of refuge. Interesting this week, Cedra, those people who get to that far in Matas Maseh. You'll find about the cities of refuge, one of the references, which we may need you, Peter, to help us along. So that's, if it's shogeg.
Can I ask, sorry, just right, is it a double siddur this week? Because I'm not sure.
It is. Matas Maseh almost always is a double sedra. Almost always. And it's to make sure everything get lined up by the time we can complete it. If you're doing a 1 year cycle, of course, some people are having the 3 year cycle. I don't know anybody now who has a 3 year cycle. But if you're in a 1 year cycle, it depends on the way the Yom Tovim fall to ensure that everything's completed in time. But Matos Maseh is together this week as we conclude Bamidbar. But also, so what we've got is, I say, in the middle you've got shogeg, which is accidental. And there we're saying the person goes to Golus and spends time there. More about this coming up in the various Mishnayos as we go through the second perek. However, it's got to be accidental, and there's a very clear definition as we've seen, and we're now going to look at some sources. It's accidental because it could be either side of accidental. What do I mean by that? It could be closer to intentional, because clearly, if it's accidental, the person did not intend the death to take place, but there's a certain amount, he could have been perhaps a slightly more careful, whereas we'll see there's certain things which veer away from the midpoints and then move to more closer to, well, not say intentional, because the person did not intend. Laurie, good to see you. Just about to start Zion on the base. And there's some categories which are less than that. What I mean, it's totally out of his control. And then clearly there's no Golus. Obviously sad that it happened, but it's totally out of his control. Imagine a typical example. As I say, we said a car is just been MOT'd, it's done everything, and the brakes don't work, whatever. It's totally out of his control, and sadly someone's killed. That is called an onus. So the question is, when we have a shogeg, which is in the middle, sometimes it might be closer to the onus category, which means totally out of his control, or it could be veering towards intentional, not intentional, because the person did not intend it, but there's a bit more, we say sheer negligence, which means now that he will not go to Golus, he would not have that opportunity of going to Golus, and much more about that as the perek develops. We had some references in the Mishnah where we said it was going down is considered, as I say, accidental. Person going down a ladder. Remember, he was smoothing the roof, for example, the roller, lowering a roller, and then he drops it, where a person should be more careful. Clearly, it's going down together. Actually, very interesting Rambam about that, where he talks about gravity, and he talks about, of course, if one's pushing something, and on top of that, you've got gravity helping as well, person needs to be more careful. If they're going up, and of course it's accidental, but it's moving away from that midpoint, veering more towards out of his control, person looking up, etc. And therefore that's what we're going to be looking at. So again, going down would be considered accidental, go, and the person then would go to the Ore Miklot. Going up is closer to an onus, which means totally out of his control as he's going up. But again, it would very much depend on the Rabbonim and seeing whether there is, how much of negligence is involved. Mervyn, with his yellow hand up.
Sorry, yeah, because I got this.
Is that the? I can't hear. We can't hear you.
Because I got disconnected.
Oh, that's
Can
better.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so I got disconnected. But so the three categories you said. Sorry to repeat this, but
yeah,
so
we got shogeg in the middle.
You got what?
Shogeg is the.
Oh yeah.
The Torah calls it shogeg, which means accidental, but there is a certain amount of negligence. But you know that's normally the bang in the middle. Then you've got things veering away from that, moving more to onus, which means totally out of his control, but not a complete onus. The person then does not need to go to Golus. Or we have things veering away the other direction, when it will be more, we say the sheer, the negligence, and therefore it's not, that's not a shogeg. That's getting closer to a mazid, and therefore the person, Golus wouldn't be sufficient for such an individual. And as we develop this, as I say, there are other rules about the Goel Adon. We won't go into that. Avenging the blood, we won't go into that now. But there are differences between whether it's a shogeg, an onus on the one hand, or korov lemazid on the other. And then you've got the extreme where it's absolute mazid. We've been talking about that, or absolutely out of his control, and that is the onus. So really 5 categories: onus and mazid. In the middle, you have shogeg, and then either side of shogeg, you've got korod le'onus or korod le'mazid. We're going to be focusing on that midpoint, or the middle category, which is shogeg. And as we said, it's got to be going down. Is shogeg going up? Is closer to onus. So again, it very much. And it's very much focusing on people being concerned, taking care, thinking about other people, thinking what might go wrong, and maybe not driving yourself mad, but concerned with other people. And therefore, if it is negligent, should a person be taking more care, etc. So let's pick this up. Zayin with base, 3 lines down. A question for Malcolm.
Just on the wording, can you just, is it, just to clarify, shogeg is unintentional, is it?
Yeah, unintentional. That's accident. Yeah, go on. Yes.
And the other one, what was it?
Well, we got onus, which is
yes,
totally out of his control.
Totally unintentional. I see.
Well, unintentional means, but maybe the person could have something.
Negligence.
Yeah, no. Shogeg. There's a little bit of negligence. I mean, a person can always be more careful, and maybe this person should have been a bit more careful. We've got things where he certainly should have taken more care, and therefore that's veering more towards mazid intentional.
Okay.
Of course, it's not absolutely intentional, but the person should have taken a lot more. Pretty clear that you do need to be careful about this, what you're doing. Or you've got things which are veering more towards totally out of his control.
I was just struck by the word used on Yom Kippur.
Yes,
isn't it?
Bishgaga
or something like that.
Yes, bishgaga, accidental. Yes, that's the same word, accidental, not intentional. That's the word being used there. Yes, quite right. Bishgaga. Yeah, I'm sure you've got lots of beautiful compositions with that. Bishgaga, yeah. Okay.
Is it linked with the word meshuga, meaning mad?
No.
Or shigayon, the Tehillim number 6, there's this unusual word, shigayon, the David. No?
No. Normally, when you talk about meshuga, shiga, or with an iron, that's got the iron.
With an iron, okay.
But you're right, in Tehillim you haven't got. That could be shigayon. Is that a possible instrument?
Or Tehillim number 7, I think. Shigyon, the David.
Shigyon, it could be through something
word.
done accidentally. Shigoyin David. Hold on, I'll get a Tilim if you like.
Sorry if I've derailed the shiur. I've always been puzzled. I've seen a painting of this Tehillim number 7. It is Shigyon, which as a sort of a chaotic.
Oh, as you've raised it, why not? Let's have a quick look at that. Good point. Raised a good point there. Let's have a look at this. Shigoyon Ledovit. Yeah, Rashi says it is a type of instrument. There you are. So I'm sure there's a duck on this as well. Menachem Omar Shigam Ze Echad Mishemus Hazemer Al Shem Hakli. And then Shigyonos Ledovit, I think it's after, isn't it? Very good point, Benjamin. That's Rashi's first interpretation, using Menachem, first pshat. Then he brings from the Medrash, Loshen Mishke, as you say. Yes, it is linked to accidental. Shenisvadev Nispalel ala Shigoyon. Yes, this is a prayer for accidental things that go wrong. But he doesn't really like that. It doesn't seem to fit that pshat. Short David Lashem Alchish. Oh yeah, so yeah, no, they do seem to take it more that it is moving towards this shogeg. So yeah, it's a good call for shigionos, which means for things which are done accident. Now again, we mentioned, remember, there's still a kapara needed because there is something. You're not totally innocent. Yes, it was a shogeg. So that word, yeah, good point. That is linked to the word shigoyin. But yeah, watch out. Shigoyin with an ayin, mishuga, that's a different root. Shin gimel ayin. Okay, that's very good. Shigoyin Ledovit. Thank you. Right, as we move on. So a third line down in the Gemara, Zayin on the base. And this point we mentioned about going down, that's a shogeg. Going up is moving more towards the onus category. Now the Gemara says, Mino Hani Mili, fourth line down, Zayin Amud base. Where do these words come from? What does that mean? What we've learned in the Mishnah last week, which is about the difference between going down and going up, is just an example where what's considered a shogeg, what's considered not a shogeg. The Gemara says, is there any, normally you do find that those words, Minohani Mili, from where are these words? In other words, what is the source? Is there a source in Tanakh which will teach us there is this difference between going down, going up? Omar Shmuel, yes. The Omar Karo, and we will have to call upon Peter, please. We're going to Bamidbar 35:23. You've actually probably got this around the side of your Gemaras, but let's see the possible. We got Michael. Oh, sorry. Oh, well, that was a very quick man with his finger on the button. Yeah, we are. It's all talking about. Yeah, but Mike, I think you had a question.
No, not so much a question, but just echoing what you were saying before. This week's Sidra.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, very good.
Always good to get that.
Yes, we've mentioned this before. Yeah. There's a lot of people who do say that this is a wonderful thing to pick up. When we're not necessarily looking to find a possible from this week's Seder, but it just happens in inverted commas where we're up to. So that's nice. Very nice indeed. And here we have this posuk that you've got there, very good, posuk 23, where it's talking about accidental. And there we are. Below Ra'os, we'll get to that. Vayapel Olov Vayomos. Dropped on Vayapel, causing it to come down on the individual, and he dies. He wasn't an enemy of his, so clearly it wasn't premeditated. And then the psukim go on to say that such a person goes to Ori Miklot. But you've got these words here, Vayapel Olov, quoted here, dropped upon the victim, or causing to drop on top of the. Let's have a look at the. Thank you very much, Peter. We'll come back to more of that. So don't lose that posuk, please, for us. That will be one of the couple of psukim that we look at, because it appears in a few places about Ori Miklot and accidental death. So it says the Gemara, Da'omakro, Vayapel Olav Vayomos. It's interesting why that word needs to be used at all. Why not just say that he killed accidentally? Says the Gemara, that's coming to teach us exactly that point. Ad sheyipol derech nefilo, or there are some texts that change that to yapil derech nefilo, causing something to go down, and then the person is killed. So that's considered a shogeg. Had it been going up, that's less negligent. Of course, a person always needs to take care, but it's moving more towards the onus. So that's really what we're saying here. And that's the posuk we got by Yapel Olav. So watch out for that posuk when you hear it being named. It will be towards the end of Maseh. By Yapel Olav Vayomos. Adshi Yipol Derech Nefilo, in other words, or Yapil coming down. And I say the main point is we've got to try and find differences between what's accidental and whether it's veering away from that in either direction, more negligent, less negligent. And it's quite specific, because now let's look at these psukim. We had, there's your Lamed. Can you go back to Lamed Aleph, Peter? Lamed Aleph, this time Yud Aleph. So it's 35:11. We're still into Maseh. You'll be pleased to see, Michael, earlier on in that parsha, where it says, and here we have Peter coming. Are we there? Posuk 11. Excellent. Whoa, spot on. V'krisem lochem orim. Mikreom. Korah, call, provide for yourself. He says, cities. Orim miklotien lochem. V'nos shoma, who will flee there? V'nos shoma rotseach. Someone who was killed, but make nefesh bishgogo. Bishgogo. There's your shogeg again. And now I'd like you to turn to a posuk in Devarim 19:4. Waiting for, here we go. Devarim, Deuteronomy 19:4. Very quick at this. V'zeh devar harotzach asher yonus shomo v'choy asher yakeh esrehu bivli das. Without bivli das, without knowledge. Okay. So, and then in fact, there's another posuk which also says Bishgoga again. Let's have a look what the Gemara does with that. We'll be coming back, Peter, to you. Let's now back to the Gemara. Tonu Rabbonon. 5 lines down. A brisa. Bishgoga. What does Bishgoga come to exclude? Says the Gemara, Prat lemezid. This comes to exclude if it's an intentional. Someone who kills intentionally does not go to the Ori Miklot. And you'll immediately ask, well, yeah, obviously that chap sadly will be killed. His he doesn't get out of it by going to Ori Miklot, but the Gemara will ask that question. Let's hold on. So the person who goes to Golus, goes to Ori Miklot, is someone who is killed, as we said, unintentionally, but it's Bishgoga, and the Brisa said Prat Lamezid, excluding someone who's killed intentionally. And then we had that other posture that Peter showed us in Devorim, where it says Bivli Das. What does that mean? Again, the Brisa said Prat Lemischavein. That comes to exclude if it's intentional, premeditated. Well, the Gemara will pick up that. That's the end of the Brisa. Says the Gemara, I don't understand this Brisa. Mazid, when it says Bishgoga, that the punishment for someone who kills and goes to this Ori Miklot is only for shogeg, not mazid. Well, we know that. Pshita, Bar Katolahi, nobody would think that the onesh for someone who's killed intentionally. What is the Brisa coming to tell us? Bar Katola means he's an individual who sadly will be killed. Bar Katola, Likta is to kill, die. Omar Rabba, or some people change this, and you can see around there's a note. Omar Rabba, which is Rabba's teacher. Rabba says, Amar, you know what this means? This word, when it said Prat Lamez, you know what the Brisa was getting at? The Brisa was telling us Prat La Omer Mutter. Someone Omer Mutter. What's Omer Mutter mean? Have a look at the top, Rashi. Omar, I've got again Rabba, but again, and there's a note there saying it should be Rabba. Garsinon is the correct text. Velo Garsinon Ella. Now, that's a bit cryptic. What does Rashi mean when he says we do not have the word Ella? You can see the Ella is in round brackets, yeah, in the Gemara. The rule about round brackets, we've mentioned this before, is they should be omitted. Square brackets mean they should be added. That's the way the Gemara, that's the normal notation in the Gemara. So Rashi's telling us quite, as we've got it also in our Gemara, there was the word Elo there, but it really should not be there. That's been added. It's incorrect. Now, what's the big difference if you put the word Elo? The difference is this. If the Gemara says something, asks a question, and then says Elo, it says no, not that, but. It's almost like a but. Elo, we're changing to what we thought before, and Elo, but it's this. If there's no Elo, we're not changing anything, we're just explaining it. And clearly in this example, Rava or Rabba is explaining what the Brisa meant. We're sticking with the words of the Brisa, we're not changing anything. So that's why, quite an important point, Elo means we are changing what we thought until now. Here, it's not an Elo, it's just Omar Rabba, but Omer Mutter, top line of the Rashi. Sova shemuta laharoik. This individual thought it's possible to kill a Yisrael. V'zeu shalah. He thought that killing accidentally, no, he thought that it's permitted to kill anybody. And now this is the point. I might have thought that such an individual, by killing someone, thinking it's permitted to kill, he would go to Golus. That's what I might have thought. But after all, that's the word mazid. Bishgoga coming to exclude a mazid. What type of mazid? Yes, he intends to kill, but he thought killing is permitted. Okay, where did he come from? Which planet is he coming from? That's part of this. But he thought killing is permitted. I might have thought that it says Bishgoga, accidental. He didn't know it's not permitted to kill someone. Prat Lamezid. This comes to exclude. We're not talking about someone who kills with bemazed intently trying to kill and knowing it's forbidden to kill, this is coming to tell us a case where I might have thought that such an individual, by killing someone, and the rule is actually killing someone who is a Yisrael, accidentally goes to Golus. I might have thought that someone who kills a Yisrael accidentally would go to Golus if he thought it's permitted to kill. Right? If there can be such an individual. And that's what the Gemara means. This is coming to exclude a mazid on the intention to kill, but not knowing that it's forbidden to kill. That's what this comes to exclude. Now, why is that excluded? That is not a real shogeg. Come on. Where, as I say, which planet is this person from? The basic civilization, or he should know that, or he should have been taught that. Find out the basics of life and social rules. So what we're saying there, that's come to exclude that type of mazid. That type of mazid does not go to Golus, because that's very much veering toward, there's more about this later on in the Gemara. This is veering much more towards the mazid category. Yes, as the Gemara asked at the beginning, we're not talking about someone who intentionally killing someone knowing full well that that's forbidden. Of course, that's not expected. But this is coming to include something more. Bishkoga, it's got to be, as I say, unintentional, not just trying to unintentionally. If we're saying it's unintentional as much he didn't know it's forbidden, that I'm afraid would not be the shogeg we're talking about. It would be Korav Lamazid. Mervyn.
Yeah, just for a point, in regard to this error, I seem to remember you said there's a difference between where you say Omar Rava or Rava Omar, as whether it contradicts what went on before. You don't necessarily need to have the error. I mean, it's an alternative.
That's a different point. If you've got an argument between two people, you'd have an Omar, and here where there's a statement made, Bishkoga Prat Lamazid.
Oh, I see.
Now, if it would have said Elo, we'd have to change something. We said, no, Elo, that wording's wrong. It should say Bishkoga Pratla something else.
Yeah, I'm with you now. Okay,
we're not doing that. We're not changing anything. We're just explaining what that mazid means. Don't think it means a straightforward intentional death. Not at all. It means that's the point we're making here about the Elo. Yeah. That's the first statement. So Bishkoga Pratla Mazid is coming to exclude where it's intentional, but in some way it's a shogeg because he didn't know it's forbidden. Okay, so we tell him, I'm sorry, that is not really the shogeg that goes to Golus. That is much more veering towards towards actual mazid. He wouldn't be killed for that if he can prove he didn't know that. Though he wouldn't be killed because he would say that as long as that could be, proven that I don't know which island he came from and living on his own somewhere, and then not knowing it's forbidden to kill. Malcolm.
I mean, is there an implication of some awareness of mental challenges? I mean,
no, you're right. If once we get involved in mental, that the person didn't understand, then that's completely off. We're not discussing that at all. Obviously, someone who is killing intentionally, but obviously not of sound mind, then clearly that's a chayler, and clearly a person will not be killed because he didn't understand. But that's not what we're talking about here. I see your point. We're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who really thinks it's permitted, and we say, well, such an individual really doesn't go to Golus because it's moving more towards the intentional. Okay.
On these normal, on these very basic prohibitions like stealing and murdering, surely there is a general acceptance this is not acceptable. So I'm clearly this doesn't apply to
you're right. if we can prove this chap has been living wherever he's been living on his, I don't know, you're right, you'll have to, it's basic ways of living. But what we're saying is, it might not, if we can prove it, it won't be necessary, we won't be killed for this if we can prove it. But he won't go to Golos under those circumstances, because you're right, it is much closer to intentional. I mean, as we say, where have you been, where have you been living all these years, not knowing, the very basics of societies? One of it, as we say, the Shiva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. So wherever he's been living, that is real basics. But it's not a shogeg, and it's not a full mazid. He would not be killed for that. That's what we're saying. Okay. Ema Pratla Omer Mutter. Now, Omele Abaya says, I don't like that interpretation, that we're talking here about someone where we're saying, remember, Omer Mutter, they think something is permitted. Omer Mutter, Abaya disagrees very interestingly. He says the wording in the Brisa, which says Bishkoga Pratla Mazid, I agree with you that Omer Mutter is not the shogeg, but is not closer to Mazid. If this individual can really prove it, that he really didn't know that such a killing is forbidden, if he can prove it, that's going to be quite tricky, I would have thought, challenging at least. But if he can, then such an individual, the wording used in the Brisa about him, I'm not happy with that, because it should say, well, it shouldn't say Prat Mazid. You can't call that closer to Mazid. Look at the Gemara's Loshen. See your hand there, Benja, just 1 minute. Omele Abaya, I mutter, oineshu. So he's challenging Rabbah and saying that is moving more towards oines. Look at Rashi, onusu, vahechu korehu mazid. How can the Brisa even refer to? I agree, he won't go to Golus, but not because it's closer to mazid. I say it's closer to an oines. Person didn't. If I say, obviously, he has to prove that point. Says the Gemara, we'll come back in a second. On Malay, Rava answers and said, no, I disagree with you, Abaya. She'ani oimer ha'oimer mutar korov lemezitu. I am of the opinion that oimer mutar, someone who says that it's mutar to kill, is closer to mazid. Will have various repercussions whether you say it's nearer mazid or nearer to oinus. If it's nearer to mazid, then it doesn't afford him protection going to Golus, which means he is at the mercy of the nearest of the person who's been killed. But that's a separate pash into Gal Adom. So it's important to clarify that, says the Gemara. And Rava is of the opinion, and we paskin like that, which I suppose maybe people might think, that Omer Mutter is korov lemazid, yes, does not go to Golus. So Rava's quite happy that the Brisa says bishkoga prat lemazid, and that mazid which is being excluded from going to Golus is someone who is Omer Mutter, says that killing is permitted. We say he doesn't go to Golus because it does not afford him that protection and the kapora that he otherwise would have got. Benjamin.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. Yeah, we're struggling to think, how can somebody think I can kill? But there are euthanasia, for instance. There may be a lot of people who think it's even a good thing, and he may genuinely believe. And in many secular societies, there are many cases where one can.
No, that's good. That's a good point. Omer Mutter, and particularly where there could have been even a rabbinic argument about whether as we say, resuscitation, or this is not resuscitation. This is going further than that. This is actually, I'd say, pulling. Very good. That's a very good point. That what you're saying, it's not so far from totally kind of say not understandable. Yes, it's a good point. So yes, without that would of course, it does lead to lots of questions about, obviously, in Benjamin, I'm sure you these type of questions, and of course, as we know, father there was one of the major issues talking about the point of death. When is death, and at what point, brain death, etc. But yeah, so what you're saying is it's not so far away from, and so it could be certainly understood. No, that's a good point. Very good. Okay. And now we move to that second comment, which is Bivli Das. Remember, that's the posture that comes up. Peter showed us that in Devarim. And there, the Brisa says, without knowledge, Prat lemischavein. That comes to exclude if someone has intention to kill. So the Gemara asks the same question. Obviously, if someone intends to kill, mischavein, says the Gemara, pshita. Obviously, such a person doesn't go to Golus, or doesn't go to Ori Miklot. Again, Ba Katolahu, he is Chayev Misa, and going to Golus would not help. He would still be, obviously, if it was intentional and there were witnesses, etc. So what is the Brisa telling us that I wouldn't have known? Bivli Das, and he's coming to say something, Parat, that comes to exclude mischavein. Says the Gemara again, Rabbah, Omer Rabbah, Prat lemischavein. This is talking about someone who does not go to Ori Miklot. What about the following case? Prat lemischavein la'areges habahema. He intended to kill the animal. There he was. Maybe he was out shooting animals. V'horages ha'odom. Didn't realize that, in fact, it was not an animal at all. V'horages ha'odom. Such an individual, that's the individual that we're referring to when we say Bivli Das Prat lemischavein. This excludes someone like this who intended to kill an animal, but kills a human. Then we're saying such an individual, it's moving away from, that's not unintentional, because a person should have taken much more care. If you've got an item you're actually killing, even though you're killing an animal, a person needs to be much more careful to ensure indeed that is an animal and not a human. If, it was negligent and he didn't intend to kill this person, so yes, he will not chayev misa, but such an individual does not go to Golus, because again, it's moving away from that midpoint. Another example where the person would not go to Golus, L'nochri v'horages Israel. Yeah, he's not allowed to kill a non-Jew either, but going to Golus is only when he kills accidentally a Yisrael. So what we're saying here, L'nochri, he intended actually to kill a Nochri, and by mistake killed the Yisrael. So the Yisrael dies accidentally. I might have thought that's included and he does go to Golus. We say no. Again, it's moving away from the middle point. And that's what the Gemara said, Prat lemischavein, excluding, he intended to kill. In this instance, he intended to kill a Nochri, kill the Yisrael. That is still, as I say, the wording there, we've got Prat lemischavein. That was an intentional killing, albeit not to kill this Yisrael. So such an individual does not go to Golus. Or the final example we've got here, Lenefel. This is a child who, again, we've spoken about this point before, the treifa, not expected to live. I said quite the contrary, expected that the person will die, the child will die very soon indeed. So Vahorag ben Kayoma, and actually killed a child who could, under normal circumstances, have survived. The Nafel would not have survived. The Ben Kayoma would. He got mixed up between the two individuals. And back to, say, Benjamin's point, maybe, say, in a hospital situation, killing the wrong one, or pulling, as I say, allowing this person to stop living, not allowing, stopping the individual living. But if there's a mix-up between a Nafel and a Ben Kayoma, so yes, he actually intended to kill the Nafel. It was an accidental on the Ben Kayoma. I might have thought that's considered a shogeg. No, it's not. Once a person's actually doing an action of, say, killing, whether we said about Hamor, a Nafel, that is now outside the normal shogeg, veering to more towards a mazid. A person needs to be even more careful. So therefore, that type of negligence is not accepted at all, and therefore we're moving away from shogeg to a mazid, and that's what the apostle wants to tell us according to this brisa. Bivli das prat lemischavein, even though if they intended to kill not this individual, that is still considered more of a mazid than a shogeg, and therefore the person does not go to golus. Okay, right, now we have a few more psukim. So if we can now move back to this week's Sedra, we got Malcolm on the with his hand up.
Yeah, so it was just about this thing about moving towards the that interpretation.
Mazid.
Yeah,
Yes.
mazid. So it
intentional.
yeah. So I mean, the thing seems to be like about the killing. So what happens if the intention was, for example, just an example, to injure an animal? I know, why would you want to do that? I don't know, but maybe you wanted to stun it or something, and by mistake then you killed a person.
Well,
so
you could say
like
that with a human. You could say that with a human.
No, well, no, but yes, you could. But if you didn't, not yet. Hold on. If you stick with the animal one,
yes,
then does that come under the category of the rolling down the roof?
That's coming. Yeah, that's yeah. That will be more towards the shogeg. We are going to talk about that a bit. So there, instead of the animal, you intended just to harm the animal, but instead of that, you killed an individual. So what
is the intention equivalent? That's the point. Is is it because the intention has to be the same thing?
No, if you're utilizing a force which could kill, then you need to be very careful. That's what we're saying here. Once you're using a force which could kill, indeed, or even just harm, if that same force could kill a human, then you need to be very careful. And what we're saying there, it's not a shogeg. Yeah. If, however, you intended, now we're going to talk about this in 1 minute. If you intended to use a certain amount of force, but used more force than you intended, what's that? Or look at the next case. Well, see, I think your question will be answered. I think even then we'd say it's not the real shogeg. We're not talking about that. That is still further away from that midpoint. Look at the examples we've got here. Going back to this time, we go to 35:22. Yes, that's right. 35:22.
Right up.
Oh, here we go. Thank you very much. 35:22. Yes, dropping down. Yeah, imbefessa. Well, he's translated below Ava. Pushed is that hadofa. It will be pushed. Yeah, we'll get that. But I'm not quite sure why it says imbefessa. Befessa normally means, as the Targum translates it there, it means nearby. If it's nearby, And these are all examples where the person does go to Golus. We've got Befesa, a man pushed. Well, I don't know what. I think the translation has missed out the word Befesa because he's gone to below Eva Hadofa and pushed without malice. That's the pushed from the Hadofo. Without malice, aforethought. Perhaps he's translating Befesa. Befesa normally means close by. Then you've got a hishlichol of kogli or throwing something. We'll get to that in more detail in a minute. Hold on to that. So let's go back to our Gemara, and we'll see what Rashi does with this. We've got a pasuk which says, have you got it? Tana Rabbanon. Im befesa. And there's a brisa which comes to tell us that comes parat, more exclusions here. If it's befesa, well, which we must translate in a moment, then the person does go to Ori Miklot. But it's got to be befesa, however we translate that word, which wasn't really translated for us there. The Gemara, have a look. The Gemara says, parat lekeren zovis. What's a keren zovis? A keren is a horn. It means a corner. Besides a corner. So the person's killed nearby, but not a corner. Look at the Rashi, please. Third line down. Befesa parat lekeren zovis. Sheloshin pesa, says Rashi, hu besomuch. It means nearby. Well, you could say perhaps nearby, perhaps that's why the translation there was saying nearby in time, but the Rashi doesn't say that, or nor does our Gemara. Could the Targuminon, as a Targum translate, biscafe. Biscafe means nearby. You're near to the individual. What does that mean? And that's when this accident happened. Parad lekeven zoris. Besides, if you're around, in other words, it means where you could see the individual. But if you couldn't see, look at this, Keren Zov is a corner. Look at Rashi. One individual is coming out of a movu, which means a small little cul-de-sac, a road, small road. Going into another road, right? So he's going down a movu, this small little road, and he's coming into the next road. The next line of Rashi, v'nichnas lo zeh, and he enters the next road. Lifnos, to turn, liyamin or small, right or left, as he gets to the end of the street, the little road. V'sakino biyodo, he's got his knife out. V'zeh bo kenegdo, the other individual's coming opposite him. He doesn't see him as he's going around the corner. But Keren Zovis, v'lo ra'ahu, he didn't see him. V'harogo, and killed him. Such an individual is excluded. It's got to be. What we're saying there is that if the person is coming round a corner, another example where a person needs to be more careful. And if you can't see that individual, and then this happens, then clearly, under that circumstance, again, we're moving away from being accidental. It's got to be clearly accidental. And then the Gemara goes on to say, parat below Avon. And I think you had that posuk there. There was no Avon, which you had in that posuk. The Gemara says, parat l'sone. Avon means it's not like lying in wait, but it's prat l'sone. This comes to exclude someone, and he's not on the best of terms with them. If he's not on the best of terms, it's called actually a sone. The Gemara will define that for us. A sone. If the person is not in on good terms with none of you, he needs to take even more care, because he might just be less careful sharpening his knife and everything, because doesn't really get on with this fellow, and is not taking as much care as he should. So what we're saying here, if he does kill accidentally someone who he is a sone of his. Of course, nobody should be in that category, but if there is a sone, and they'll say, well, we'll deal with that again later, then such an individual doesn't go to Golos, because you can never be certain whether maybe the individual who killed didn't do this with a full shogeg. There might have been more negligence than we would have liked. That's the point. If there's a possibility there's more negligence, then the person does not go to Golos. And there's that word hadofoi, he pushed him. Now, this is interesting. Shedochafoi begufoi, pushing with a bodily push, says, look at that, very interesting. Shedochafoi begufoi, below mischavein, without intentionally trying to harm him, but he pushed with his body. Pushing. Now the question is, which side of the shogeg is that? Someone pushing with the body. It's a body push. Should a person be more careful or less careful? Well, that's something which that does need to be considered. All Rashi says, the Gemara says, that's not a shogeg. Whether you classify this, if a person's killed by pushing, that a person should be more careful or less careful, that's not clear. But that is not a standard shogeg. That's what we're saying there. Oy hishlich olav, or throwing on him. Again, this point about throwing stones, let's say. Lahovi, this comes to include a yorido shitzorech aliyah. If he hishlich, he threw, and remember we explained before, going down is considered a shogeg, going up is more of an accident. If this is coming to include a yorido shetzorech aliyah, when one's going down in order to come up. Have a look at Rashi, please. Lahovi yorido shetzorech aliyah kagoy. Here's a butcher. Horoitze lahorim yodoi bekayach. Or persons maybe trying to, I don't know, let's look at, imagine the trees. Cutting branches from trees, and it's above his head, so he's planning to raise the implement. But to do so, he lowers his hand to give him some extra strength as he raises his hand subsequently to cut the branch. Look at Rashi. He's got a scythe or a small axe or something that he's used in his hand. He first lowers his hand or his whole body, gufay, bending down, kedei lahorim bekoyach. Nice example here. Sounds like the weightlifters. In order to raise bekoyach. But when he lowered, he's looking up at the tree, and he lowers his hand in order to bring it up. Now, when he lowered his hand, horag, at that instance he killed, not realizing there was somebody there, and he killed him. The low tamer, don't say, oh, but he Potter, because he was going up. We said always, if you're going up, you're looking upwards, you don't notice so much what's happening down below, and that's more of an onus. We say, don't think that such an individual would be exempt from Golus, because as we said before the very beginning, it says by Yapel. So again, this person lowering, but is really trying to raise his hand with strength. Is that going up or going down? So none doing the lift. So what we're saying here is because actually he lowered his hand, that would be under the Golus category, whereas if it was going straight up, we'd said that's less of a Golus. It's more moving towards the accidental. So again, the same point here. Again, the Gemara will elaborate further. we're talking about when those often we find that type of statement, a yurida l'tzorech aliyah, going down in order to come up. I mean, one thinks, the divers, the lowering in order to come up. Very, very important principle, actually, lowering the situation in order to gain strength, to raise. Well, we're calling that a Yerida Shila Tzorech Aliyah. Okay. And then the Gemara says,
for me, Norman, to mention anything Muslim, I remember that phrase, Tzorech Aliyah.
Yes.
Said it's a topical
yes,
point.
yes. No, very
I'm still on
point.
I'm still on the Yerida trajectory.
But you're going towards it. It's all for the point of the aliyah, of course.
But serious point was it?
That is a very serious point. You read the Tzorech Aliyah. You often find that you might be bending something down in order to get to the midpoint. So you lower things lower than you really want in order to move. And so it's you read the Tzorech Aliyah, quite an important point, as I say in Musa circles. A good, very good moving. And just a couple of others before we close. Or is there one more we can do? Let's just. There are two more here. Below Tzediyah. Interesting words. Not Tzediyah is normally like sod is capturing without trying to, but the word Tzediyah has got a double meaning. Look at Rashi, below Tzediyah, that's the word used in that posuk. Loshen Tzidud, for the word tzad, which means a side. Shalonis chamein letzadeid letzad sheni. He didn't want to, whatever it was, could have been a knife or whatever, or the stone. He didn't intend to throw it in that direction. That's the point. Parat lemischavein letzad zeh v'holcholo letzad acher. Have a look at Rashi. No, there isn't. Is there? No, Vasher lo tzod. That's the next one. So below tzediyah loshen shalonis chavein letzadeid letzad sheni. He didn't intend to throw it in that direction. You with me? V'holcholo letzad acher. It went to the direction where he had not intended. So that's what we're saying there. Purat again. So again, below tzediyah purat lemishavin letzad zeh v'holcholo letzad acher. Then we're saying that's not bang in the middle, as we said. That is veering away from that midpoint of shogeg. And another example of Asher lo tzoda. Parat, this comes lemischavein. Now that posuk was from Shemos. I won't bother you, Peter. But then another posuk in Shemos which uses the same words. Asher lo tzoda. He had not, again, the words. It not planned. Tzod is normally to go and capture. So he hadn't planned to kill this individual. But again, what does that come to include? All these extra words, says Rashi. Parat, this comes to exclude mischavein lizrok shtayim b'zorak arba. He intended to throw the stone a distance of 2, whatever you're talking about, whether it's 2 meters. Whatever the 2 is, and he threw 4, so he doubled the distance. He didn't intend to throw it at such a distance. So look at Rashi. What we seem to be saying there is when he's throwing it, but it's gone a distance greater, or there's a different girsa there actually. If you see where it says v'chein lizrok arba v'zorek shmoina. There's a different text. If you look at my Rav Runjberg, he changes it from 4 to 2, the text should be. In other words, where a person's intending to throw the stone to this distance, and by mistake, he throws it further or less, and then it kills, that is outside the categories we're talking of here, which is the shogeg. So again, we always need to concern ourselves which side of the shogeg is it? Is it more of an onus or more of a or more amazed? But again, it's really focusing the mind, and I think all these halachas, it's not just Gemara Makkas, it's focusing the mind that a person should be taking care, being attentive, taking care, whatever the actions a person does. And we can see here that, focusing on, there are other individuals in this world too, rather than being the self-centered approach, and concerning ourselves. Whatever you do, always try and think beforehand. Accidents sadly do happen, and that's why we do have the shogeg. But otherwise, but as much as one can, take care. And again, as we stressed before, it's not just with actions, it's with words too. If one can just think for 1 second before saying something, particularly in a sensitive area, could be Avelus or whatever it is, but in sensitive areas, beware, because I say that's really what it's this whole Gemara is training us to think before taking actions, speaking, to ensure that all will be well. Yes, sadly, if things do happen, go wrong, that we've got the shogeg rules, but let's try and avoid all of that. So with that, gentlemen, that's great to see you. Are we okay for next week? Now, I think, Peter, you're saying going away a bit later, are you?
I'm away for the next 2 Wednesdays.
Right.
I should be able to cover next Wednesday.
Right.
The Wednesday after, maybe a question mark, but next Wednesday should be okay.
Okay. That's good.
So yes, I won't be as adept as Peter. But
Oh,
I'll try my best. And Peter, you send out the page of Gemara. You have to remind me where that page comes from.
I will say, I'll send it on to Peter, and Peter will forward it, or I can send it directly to you.
That's fine. That's fine. Send it either way.
Actually, I can probably tell you now, it will be this Talmud. There you are. And we are not going to go beyond the end.
My question, where you get it from, where you download it from.
Oh, well, okay. Well, Peter will say
you can let me know, Peter, by email.
Yeah, okay. If there is anything else, we'll go with that. No doubt, Peter, you'll be contactable if necessary. You're away, Peter, or you're no. I don't mean in the middle of the shiur. I just mean beforehand. Okay. So you can say, so you send that but that's easy enough. Whatever was sent this week, you can just tell Karen to send the same thing out, or people have it anyway for this week. So that should be fine. So yeah, peace. I wish you well.
Thank you.
You're on holiday somewhere.
I will miss you.
We'll miss you. Okay. Okay. We wish you well. Wish everybody well, and good to see people. And yes, let's say before we go, Kuf Chof Aleph, and then we will conclude. We're not saying Shigoyin LeDavid. No, not the moment anyway. Here we are. Oh, well done. Shiur Lama Alois.
May Yomom Hashem
אחרי כל בית ישראל הנשואים בצורו ושיביו הם דבעים באים ובאים עליהם בושם. עליהם ויוצאים